Okay, Reddit, I need some advice, seriously. Things are completely messed up. My husband, Finn, and I, we'd been together for 5 years, married for 2. We met at work, so I didn't know much about his past. But after a while, we found out we both only had one serious relationship after college. My ex and I, 4 years, 3 in college and 1 after. We broke up, just couldn't make it work, and totally lost touch. When I met Finn, it had been 5 years since the breakup. But get this, when we started dating, he was still super close to his ex. Valerie, high school sweethearts they were. Together since they were 16, all through college. They'd been apart for 5 years when he met me. He said it was because she got a job in Australia that she really needed, and he didn't want to do long distance. They tried for a few months, but decided it wasn't going to work. It was the best thing for both of them. They hung out in the same circles, so they stayed friends. And that's where it gets really bad. Everything was cool between us until New Year's Eve. That's when I finally met his friends after almost 9 months of dating. He wanted me there to officially introduce me to the whole crew over dinner. And surprise, Valerie was there. I honestly didn't think she'd be. I'd only heard about her from Finn, and he always spoke so highly of her. At first, I wasn't feeling any kind of way, but then I actually started talking to her. And man, her vibe with me was way different than I'd pictured. Finn made her sound like this warm, chill person. But that wasn't what I saw. She started saying some really mean things to me right in front of everyone. And everyone just laughed it off like that's just how she was. But it wasn't funny to me. I don't think anyone even realized it because she hid it all behind a joke. Like, she said it was shocking to see me in person because I looked different in pictures. And now that she'd seen me, she wasn't sure if I was Finn's type because he usually went for tall blondes, which I wasn't. She was, though, and everyone cracked up because they thought she was just kidding. She even said that since I was replacing her, she felt like she had to give me tips on how to keep Finn happy. Honestly, all the earlier stuff she said, I just shrugged it off. I figured, okay, maybe she's got a weird sense of humor, which everyone kept saying about her. I was trying to be cool about it. But later, when we were all having drinks, she raised her glass to Finn, moving on, saying how happy she was for him. I thought, that's nice, until she added that if she hadn't moved to Australia, I probably wouldn't even be here with them. Seriously, it was super uncomfortable, and thankfully, nobody laughed. But then she started giggling at her own weird comment, and everyone kind of had to chuckle along just to get past it. I totally got that she was still holding on to something with Finn. So when we got home, I told him straight up that if he wanted to be with me, I didn't want her talking to me anymore. I told him I was uneasy about their friendship because it was clear she wasn't over him. Plus, she'd been a total pain to me throughout our whole thing. I'd been polite to her before, and I wasn't going to do that again. I was really clear about where I stood because I'd dealt with similar crap in the past. Luckily, Finn got it. He said he thought her behavior was strange too, and he decided he'd have to cut her out of his life since he didn't want her to mess things up for us. And that was that. After that whole situation, I never got wind of him talking to or even bringing up Valerie again. He said he'd blocked her, so I figured that was that. I ran into his friend a few times after that, and they never brought her up either, probably because Finn told them I wasn't a fan. Everything was actually pretty good until last week. I'm actually pregnant, and my due date was last Sunday. Today's Thursday. And then Finn took off to go see Valerie, who had some kind of emergency and needed him. So he left 2 days before I was supposed to give birth, and he just got back last night. We had a massive fight about it, too, because I was under the impression he'd blocked Valerie and wasn't talking to her anymore. He said he did all of that, but she'd reached out to him from a different phone number, and she was in bad shape. She got diagnosed with stage 2 brain cancer, and she really wanted someone there for her. I was so mad at him because I couldn't believe he'd leave me alone when I was about to pop. And to be honest, Valerie had just gotten the diagnosis, and I understood it was hard for him to deal with the fact that someone he used to care about might not make it. But it wasn't like she was going to die the next day. He could have at least stayed and been there for me when I gave birth. But the day he found out, he just had to go right away. I begged him, practically pleaded, that it was crazy to even think about leaving me alone, especially now. But he just brushed it off, said he'd be back before I actually went into labor because due dates are like never right. He told me to just handle things until he got back. Then that same day, he just left for the airport, didn't even finish talking to me. He absolutely knew that I didn't have anyone here. My folks were way out in Iowa, and I was completely dependent on him. After he left for the airport, I tried calling him a bunch of times, but his phone was off. I was freaking out, super desperate, so I called my mother-in-law, who's always been sweet to me. The second I told her what was happening, bawling my eyes out, she rushed right over and started trying to get a hold of him. But surprise, his phone was still off. She stayed with me, trying to calm me down all day. I was such a wreck, just sobbing constantly because my pregnancy hormones were making everything worse. We couldn't reach Finn until the next day. Even then, when we called, he didn't answer. Instead, he just texted both of us, saying he was coming back soon, probably before the baby was born. He was sorry for doing this to me and said he'd accept whatever I thought was a fair punishment when he got back. But right now, he just needed to be there for an old friend because she didn't have any family nearby either, and her parents couldn't fly over from Australia because her dad was also really sick. Look, she was banking on him being around to help her process everything, and he just had to be there. That whole explanation just didn't sit right with me. What really got me going was that he thought it was more important to rush over to his old friend because he thought a cancer scare was an emergency, completely brushing aside his own wife. I don't think a cancer diagnosis is any more pressing than, say, being pregnant, because what was he gonna do, you know? Fix it instantly. Nah, so he should have stayed with me, period. My mother-in-law felt exactly the same way, and when he sent that message, she straight up asked me if I wanted to leave him. I didn't even hesitate, just said yes. So she got her lawyer on it and had him draw up divorce papers for me and an agreement to cut off Finn's parental rights. She told me that if he came back before the baby was born, I could decide whether to go ahead with the divorce right then and there or try to talk things out with him first. But if he didn't show, I knew exactly what to do. She raised Finn herself, was a single mom, so I got why she was so serious about it. She even told me she'd make sure Finn paid child support, unlike his own dad, who never even met Finn after he was born and just left his mom to handle everything. She swore I wouldn't have to deal with the same stuff she went through, and she was there for me all week. The next few days, we both stayed away from Finn. Then, on Monday, my labor started. My mother-in-law tried calling him to tell him I was in the hospital, but he didn't pick up. She figured there was no point in texting him. Luckily, my folks had come in the day before, and they were all there with me. Even so, Finn's not being there hit me hard that day, and I knew no matter what happened when he got back, I'd never look at him the same way again. So I filled out the divorce papers and told the lawyer to file them right away. The whole process should start ASAP. I did that like 3 hours after I had the baby. I could barely even hold the pen, but one look at my little girl showed me that if I wanted to be happy and be a good mom to her, I had to take care of myself first. And I couldn't do that if I was with a guy who made it super clear he cared more about Valerie than he did about me. After I had our daughter, I didn't even call him or my mother-in-law. My folks and I stayed at home together. My parents are going back tomorrow, so it'll just be me and my mother-in-law after that. I told everyone I was done with him because he hadn't even bothered to call, even though he swore he'd be back before the baby was born. And on top of that, he'd spent a whole week with Valerie. Last night, he finally came home, showing up real late. I opened the door and he just grabbed me in a hug. I pushed him away, telling him I wanted nothing to do with him. Then the doorbell rang, and when I opened the door, my mother-in-law marched right in. She shoved some papers in his face and basically yelled at him to get out, right now. She didn't care where he went, just that he was gone. She said I needed some quiet time since I'd just had the baby a few days before, and he wasn't even around. She also said I'd already finished the divorce papers, and he needed to sign papers giving up his rights to our daughter. He was totally shocked. He couldn't even speak for a few minutes. I just wanted to get everyone out of there because my mother-in-law was right. I was still worn out and needed time to recover. I went into another room because I didn't want to talk to Finn, and seeing him was making me feel really weak. I didn't want this to get any harder. Then I heard them yelling. I knew Finn was fighting with his mom, but I stayed out of it in the other room with my baby. A few minutes later, I heard Finn yelling my name, wanting to talk, at least see his daughter. He figured he was owed that. Man, that really rubbed me the wrong way. I put my baby down for the night, went back outside, and told him straight up, after what you did. I don't owe you a thing. He'd made a conscious choice to skip town, knowing I was about to have the baby. He flat out missed his daughter's birth. He bilayed on me, and I was only lucky my mother-in-law was there to help. So yeah, I didn't owe him anything. I told him I didn't care. The baby was asleep, and I wasn't waking her up. I asked him to go and we could talk in the morning. He finally left, but I saw tears in his eyes. He tried one last time to talk, but I just stepped back and told him to leave me alone. We were exhausted, so we went to bed. But then this morning he showed up again. That's when I told him it was over, finished. He'd run off with Valerie almost right away, and nothing he could say would change my mind. My mother-in-law was there, but I'd told her I wanted to handle this myself, get it all out in the open. Then he started crying and begging, and my mother-in-law had to take the baby out of the house so she wouldn't hear all that. He was going on and on, loudly insisting he only went because Valerie, his ex, was supposedly on her deathbed and had begged him to come. He'd stayed there a whole week since she had no family around and was feeling super lonely. He claimed he spent all that time just trying to cheer her up and be there for her. He swore it was totally innocent, but I wasn't there, so who knows, right? So I just told him that it didn't matter anymore and to get out. Then he had the nerve to say that even if I decided to leave him, he thought it would be too much to take away his chance to be a dad. He asked me to reconsider, or he'd have to fight for custody. Even then, it was pretty unlikely he'd get custody of his daughter because, first of all, he wasn't even there when she was born, which we could use against him, and he knew it. Plus, she was practically a baby and needed me way more than him. He begged me for another shot because, despite everything, all he wanted was a family. He finally left, but he told me to think it over, and now I'm totally lost. This is a huge deal, and it impacts people's lives, so I want to be absolutely sure about what I do. So, Ada for divorcing my husband and telling him to give up his parental rights to our daughter since he bilated on the birth to hang out with his ex, who said she was dying. Okay, here's the update. I've made up my mind and I'm going through with the divorce. But full custody, that's still a tough call. It's been 4 days since I put up my last post, and Finn's been at my door every single day. He's been saying he's sorry and practically begging me to forgive him. It's seriously hard to keep saying no, but I know I have to. Luckily, my mother-in-law's been a total rock, right by my side through all this. She's helping me out with the baby, too. My parents had to head back home just 2 days after the baby was born, and she's been amazing enough to move in with me, for good. She understands I'm going to need all the help I can get. I told her that even if Finn doesn't get full custody, she can see her granddaughter whenever she wants. I even asked her what she thinks about the whole custody thing, but she's leaving it up to me. She says she knows I'll do what's best for us just like I did with the divorce. But honestly, deciding is still a real struggle. It's not getting any easier with Finn showing up every day. Each time I just want to give in, take him back, and forget everything. But I can't, I know I can't. Not after everything. Valerie has always been a problem, and he didn't even care when I was carrying his child. Honestly, I have no clue if they've even talked lately. I just can't believe a word he says anymore. His apologies, always the same tired song and dance. He keeps saying the exact same thing he said the first time he got back from seeing Valerie. Nothing happened, it was all innocent. He was just helping her out because she was supposedly dying, and as her friend, he felt he had to be there. I've had to tell him the same thing over and over. It doesn't even matter anymore, though. I'm leaving him. It sucks, I know, but that's just how it is. A few days back, I said I was going through with the divorce. I still wasn't sure about full custody of my daughter, but I think I've figured it out now. For 5 days straight, Finn was here trying to make things right, begging me to take him back. Then, poof, he just vanished. It was weird, but honestly a relief. I thought I could finally breathe and think straight. Yeah, not so much anymore. Because after he stopped showing up, I started getting emails from people saying I'm a terrible person, that my actions are wrong, and they never thought I'd do something like this. My phone blew up with texts. It wasn't just his usual crew, either. People I hadn't seen since high school, even college, were all messaging me. It felt like he'd made some kind of template message, a freaking petition or something, for them all to copy and paste. Like he was trying to get the mayor to change his mind about whatever he's fighting against. At first, I just blocked people left and right, but then they started making fake accounts and sending the same crap over and over. You can only block so many people before you go nuts. On top of all that, I'm dealing with a ton of emotional baggage, trying to figure out what's going on with me. I'm exhausted between deliveries and taking care of the baby. I'm running on fumes. This is the absolute last thing I needed right now. And honestly, if he really cared about me, he wouldn't put me through this, especially now when I'm so vulnerable. It's obvious he only cares about himself. So custody, I'm not worried. I'm going for full custody, that's it. He's still got the paperwork so he can sign it over if he wants, but yeah. I've already talked to my lawyer and the ball's rolling. These messages, they've been awful. I know for sure he wrote that template and told his buddies to send it. This just sums up what he believes more than anything else. And honestly, if that's what he really thinks of me, I don't think we have any business being together. It just infuriates me because in those messages was this line. It said, "We never figured you'd be the kind of person who uses their kid as a weapon to hurt their partner and play mind games." Like, seriously, is this guy for real? Does he actually think I'm using our daughter to get back at him for something? I don't think he has a clue how marriages or kids even work. If he did, he never would have said that. And honestly, that specific line both stung and helped me make up my mind about everything. When I showed those texts to his mom, she just blew up and wanted to call him and give him a piece of her mind. But I asked her not to, because it just wasn't worth it. If we called him out on it, he'd just deny everything, even though all his friends were texting me the same stuff, which made it crystal clear that he was behind it all. I really don't get why he felt the need to drag his buddies into it. It's not like I was going to read their messages and then just stop doing whatever it was I was doing. Their opinions don't matter to me at all, because they aren't my friends. I've never been close to any of them, so they can think whatever they want about me, and I truly couldn't care less. I think he figured that if a bunch of people started texting me about it, I would cave in or something. It terrified me, you know? Like, what if he really didn't know me at all? I'm not someone who folds under pressure. He showed up every single day, begging, pleading for another chance, but I wouldn't budge. Letting him back in? That would have been a disaster for both of us, especially for our little girl. Yeah, it broke my heart a little, but I stuck to my guns. After all this time, he should know who I am by now, right? Clearly, he doesn't. Every day that goes by, I feel even stronger about leaving him. His buddies, his whole crew, even if they all started texting me, it wouldn't make a difference. Nope, not a chance. Honestly, what he did only made me more sure of myself. As long as my loved ones have my back, I'll be fine. So update. The divorce and custody stuff starts in a few days. Finn's not fighting the divorce itself, but he wants some kind of custody of our daughter. We'll see how that plays out. I'm not heartless, I'm willing to consider it, but I definitely don't want to share custody until she's at least a couple of years older. That's what we'll be working out, and I'm so glad I did this for me. Honestly, I figured I'd be terrified now that this whole thing is unfolding, seeing how real it all is, but I've never felt so sure about anything, ever. I think part of this is because of a message I got from Valerie yesterday. She said she didn't want to break up a home, but she wanted someone there for her. Since her folks couldn't be, Finn was the only other person she could imagine. She also said she'd tried to get in touch with him a bunch of times over the last few years, but he'd always said no, saying I wouldn't be okay with it. But she knew her oldest friend would always be there for her, especially when she wasn't doing well. So she reached out, and she said she was sorry for causing so much drama in my marriage. But she thinks I should let him be himself instead of bossing him around. So I was right, he hadn't blocked her at all, they had actually talked. Maybe not how I'd thought, but they did communicate. The worst part was, she told me that when they were together, they had a moment where they kissed for several minutes. But then Finn pulled back, saying he couldn't do it, especially since his wife and kid were with him. She said the kiss didn't last that long, and that showed how committed he was to me, like that was supposed to fix anything. It was insane, but absolutely I was right about everything. Okay, so now that I've got all this new information, getting the divorce and custody the way I want shouldn't be too hard. My lawyer and I tweaked the paperwork, asking for a bit more than we initially did. After everything he put me through, I feel like I deserve it. I'm really feeling good about this, you know? I just have a gut feeling it's all gonna work out. I'll let you all know what happens next. Thanks so much for listening to me spill my guts about this whole crazy mess. It means a lot to have you guys here with me through this family drama.